Congressman Ron DeSantis, how are you, sir?
How you guys doing?
We're exceptionally well. And yourself?
I'm doing good. I mean, we have a lot of stuff that's been kicked around Washington, so we're going to be really busy continuing to uncover the truth about what happened in the lead up, during, and the aftermath of the terrorist attacks in Benghazi. We've just barely scratched the surface on the malfeasance of the Internal Revenue Service, and that is going to take a long time to ferret out all those folks who were either issuing orders to violate people's rights or were actually on the ground doing it. And then we have other parts of the Justice Department and whatever. So, we're doing good legislation. We repealed Obamacare out of the House. Now, the Senate probably won't take it up, but we did do that this week, and we're going to continue to try to legislate pro-growth policies. But, we have a constitutional responsibility to conduct oversight over this massive bureaucracy, and we have to do that because it's clear it's gotten out of hand.
Well, I tell you what, we are just so impressed with the efforts that you have personally made. You're kind of the new kid on the block there. And normally that person does not enjoy a lot of respect and a lot of attention. But I am so impressed by the way that you have literally grabbed the bull by the horns and saying, I'm going to lead the bull now. You speak well for your district and the people are in it. And just like Victoria was saying, we need more constitutionalists up there and representing the people. We're in deep trouble. How do you feel about, I'm going to put you on the spot. How do you feel about the fair tax?
I'm a co-sponsor of H.R. 25.
Yes. That was the correct answer.
How is it popping up on the agendas there in Congress since all of this with the Internal Revenue Service is going on?
Well, I think people do recognize that when you have a system that we do, you're giving all this power to unelected federal bureaucrats and agents, and to be able to have essentially access to your personal information, to bully you, to intimidate you, and so there's a liberty aspect to it that I think people are starting to become more attuned to. I think people have always understood that our tax code is just so ridiculously complex. People spend millions and millions of hours in terms of across the entire economy with record-keeping, compliance, and all this stuff. And if all that energy was put to productive uses, we'd have better economic growth. In terms of H.R. 25, I think we got between 65 and 75 co-sponsors, and so we still have most Republicans are not really thinking bold about tax reform. But I'd say I've also co-sponsored a bill called the Tax Code Termination Act, which would set a date at the end of 2017 is what they picked, so we have enough time in which to develop an entirely new tax system so the code would actually be terminated, and lawmakers would know that. And I think that's a benefit because, when we talk about tax reform, I think so many people up there, they just kind of accept everything with the current system, and so all they want to do is nibble around the edges, where if we had a date certain, we could say, okay, we can develop any system that we want, and I think we have a chance to have one that's way more pro-growth and pro-taxpayer and pro-freedom, but the numbers are certainly not there yet. I mean, I think the Senate, all they'd be interested in doing now is raising taxes, and I think obviously this president, he wants to raise even more taxes as well. So we need to start doing a better job of getting more pro-growth candidates into office if you really want to see fundamental tax reform.
Well, we're seeing here an increased interest in the fair tax. This is a tremendous opportunity for Tea parties to get rejuvenated and start pushing this agenda forward. If people would just take time to read it, I don't care what your party affiliation is, it puts more money in your pocket, puts more power and control back into you.
Well, and that's what I've told some activists too is, I'll have people with the fair tax shirts coming up to me and I'm like, look, coming up to me, you don't need me.
Exactly.
I'm already, what you need to do is quite frankly, you need to start talking to Democrats because if you think about it, in the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton said a consumption-based tax was good for the poor and it hurt the rich more because if the rich live extravagantly, then they just pay the consumption tax on top of that. So they end up contributing far beyond what they make in terms of the government's operation. Whereas if you're somebody who's trying to get ahead, you're starting off at the bottom, you can control how much you save. And if you're saving, you're not penalized. And so that aspect to it, I don't think people have done a good job of explaining. But ultimately, it's not going to be something, if it's something only conservative Republicans support, it's going to be harder to get a groundswell. So people need to get out of their comfort zones and talk to folks who are not necessarily in agreement with them on all the issues, but just explain how this could be good for Americans of all walks of life.
There was a Democrat in Alaska, I believe, that was supporting this thing because he understood that it was better for their demographics than even for ours. I don't know if he's still around.
Dan Boren, I think, from Oklahoma. He retired.
Oh, Oklahoma, was it? Okay.
And they had a few Democrats when they first rolled it out back, I think, 10 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago. But, yeah, now it's pretty much a partisan thing. And so that's not good for us for it just to be a Republican thing. Now, there's some Democrats who will never support it because all they want to do is raise taxes. But I do think that there are some Democrats who want to see that folks who are blue-collar and working-class people can have a chance to save more of what they make and have more freedom to spend how they want to spend.
Well, this would be a great one for unions to get behind.
It would indeed.
The problem with that is that it's harder for, yes, union members, I think, would like it, but, you have this union leadership, and what they want is easy access to the union dues. And so, not necessarily saying you couldn't do it because you could still do it through the paycheck, but any system that gives the individual more control, I think some of the union leaders do not like that because they want to be able to control their membership. But if you look at the membership, a lot of these unions, half these guys are voting Republican. It's not like they're all liberal Democrats.
Yeah. Right. I know your time is really valuable. We talked last week about the tax on the Internet, and we were looking forward to chatting that with you. Where do we stand right now with that?
So the Senate passed it, 69 votes in favor of it, which is a pretty strong majority for them. So that got sent over to the House, and so what me and some of my colleagues are doing is just trying to nip it in the bud. And so, I've been writing editorials. We did a 30-minute special order speech, me and two of my freshman colleagues, just talking about, why it would be bad for the economy, why it's bad for consumers, and why it's bad for small businesses who do sales out of state. They're going to have to comply with the tax laws of all these other states. They could get audited. A Florida business that ships across state lines could get audited by states like California and Illinois. These are revenue-hungry states that have an incentive to focus their tax collection efforts on out-of-state businesses who can't hold them politically accountable. So it's essentially you're conscripted to be a tax collector for a state in which you have no physical presence, and that's essentially taxation without representation. So if people go onto Facebook and go onto my Facebook page, we posted the video of our speech, and we kind of lay it out, the problems with it. So I think we've talked to the speaker about it, and he's basically said that he's not going to bring it to a floor as a standalone measure, and that's what the Senate did. They passed it as a standalone measure. So it's possible if you had a 1,000-page bill, someone could try to slip it in there, but we'll be on the lookout for that.
Great. Cool. Listen, they're telling me that we're coming to the end of our time. We're going up on a hard break. We would love to have you come back here once a month if that's good for you, and let us know what you feel is important for us and how we can better help you folks up there. Are there any thoughts that you can give us that will help us to better get things done in Washington?
Well, I would say that, the legislative aspect is easy for folks to follow because you can see, hey, this Internet tax, I don't like it. This I like, whatever. But dealing with this bureaucracy and how unaccountable the bureaucracy is, it's an issue that, you got to get down in the weeds a little bit, but it really strikes at the heart of whether we have a government of, by, and for the people. The Founding Fathers believed every source of power had to have some constraints on it, and then you couldn't just trust people to exercise power, that they would abuse it. And so what we're seeing is the chickens coming home to roost on that, but we've allowed this bureaucracy to get all this authority. And so I would just say people need to be very mindful and engaged in this oversight fight, and hopefully we can really downsize and reform the bureaucracy, because David Axelrod, Obama's main strategist, said that the president can't possibly know all this stuff going on because the government is so vast. And my response is, well, if that's true, then that's the best argument I've ever heard for reducing the size and scope of the bureaucracy.
Yes. Yep. Congressman DeSantis, we thank you so very much.
Happy Armed Forces Day. You are a veteran.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Actually an active duty one.
Yes.
Or rather reserve.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. God bless you for what you're doing. And then we look forward to having you on next month if that's possible.
Anytime, guys. Thanks. It's great being here.
Sure
Thank
thing.
you.